obviously we got to do a couple tributes for the late Arthur Jones, and unfortunately, as of Sunday, Captain Defense, who is just unbelievable. Speaking of members of the community, he was all that and more to the Ravens flock. So we're going to finish with that. But first, Chuck Pagano came up in that press conference that we've already talked a lot about. And Jeff, I wanted to get your thoughts, Cole, you as well, in terms of just our final thoughts going into week 6 from a job security standpoint. And in order to do that, here is John talking about Zio. It was specifically asked about Zach Orr. And you'll notice Chuck Pagano comes up in conversation, as does Dean Pease.
We were asked about Zach Orr yesterday, but a year ago, right around this time, you brought in Dean Pease. It's not the same exact situation, but Chuck Pagano's on staff. He's a past defensive coordinator. How much is Zach, how much are you, how much is the defensive staff leaning on him with his experiences? A little bit of a fresher perspective. He wasn't here last year in terms of trying to get this back on track.
Yeah, immensely. I mean, I would say that's true for all the coaches, and Chuck, as much as all the coaches, and also different because Chuck's got all that experience, like you said. Chuck he's been there every day. He's into me. He's a big part of how the defense is built already. And, Chuck is involved. He's on the phones. He's making suggestions, on the phones all the time. It's a great conversation with the whole staff. And Chuck is a great coach, and he's a huge part of it. And he and Zach are talking all the time. And, he's right in there. That's one of the reasons I'm so confident, because Chuck's there. And we talked to Dean, too, just so you know. I mean, had a conversation with Dean and today, and Zach has a conversation in the staff, so he's watching, he cares, so he's part of what we're doing. We got people that we lean on for sure. It's not like we just, if you got people that you lean on that know the defense, that are part of this structure, that you want to get their view of it, we definitely do that.
All right, gentlemen, let's be quick on this one just because there's a game to be played, and clearly they're not making any changes, at least from a staffing standpoint, between now and Sunday. But, Jeff, your thoughts on, one, how he handled this specific part of the press conference and what you think Zach Orr's job security is at this point in the process.
Yeah, I mean, I asked the question to John Harbaugh after Sunday's game, and he was pretty resolute that they don't think that's the answer. I'll say this, though. You wouldn't have made a change this week anyway. There's too many moving pieces with guys not healthy. You're playing a really good Rams team. It's just, it would be too much to do that this week. And it wouldn't be fair for the new guy to say, oh, hey, go in and you have to face a McVay offense and Matthew Stafford. And yeah, you're going to have to do it without Roquan Smith and Marlon Humphrey and Nnamdi Madubuike and Chidobe Awuzie. So, I didn't expect a change to happen this week. I'll say this, and I'm not hearing this. All I'm hearing is support about Zach Orr. I want to be clear on that. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. A lot of times these things come out of nowhere. I don't think anyone expected them to fire, Cam Cameron when they did, and you can go back even further. So you don't always know. John Harbaugh makes that decision. But all I hear is support for Zach Orr, and they are not acting like a team that is about to make a big move in terms of the defensive coaching staff. And Chuck Pagano has a lot of say. He's had a lot of say in day one. It's always different if you're the play caller and you could put your own imprint on it. But you'd like to think he's part of the solution in what role he's in now. And if he gets the defensive coordinator job, then that'll be even bigger role. But you'd like to think he's having a major influence now. I'll say this, though. If they get lit up again on Sunday and it just looks like they have no answers again and they can't stop something, stop the pass or fix something, just nothing seemingly gets fixed. It's the same issues every week. I have a hard time thinking that there won't be a change contemplated in the bye week. It's just, how long do you go down this road? And you're going to get to the point where these losses keep stacking up and it's going to be almost a what's the point kind of thing. They're so far out of this. What is making a coaching change going to do? This is a huge game, I would think, for Zach Orr. They need to start making some progress in some areas and showing a little more fight. I do not think they want to fire Zach Orr. That should be very clear. They do not want to do it. Whether they think they have to do it, I think Sunday could, send a big message towards that.
Cole, do you have any big picture thoughts on job security? Are you ready for the tributes tonight?
Yeah, no, I think that was well said. I guess the only thing I would add is, and I want to be clear about this because I think like coaches play bigger roles than you'll hear about in the media, if that makes sense. And so like if you go back to, Mike McDonald, all the focus was on Mike McDonald, the success that Mike McDonald was having. You never heard about the impact Denard Wilson was making. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that this isn't a regular thing, but I do find it interesting that they believe in Zach Orr so much, but yet last year they had to bring in Dean Pease to kind of help him. Now they brought in Chuck Pagano to kind of help him. And it's like, at what point is he the right guy if you need to bring in these veteran coaches? But at the same time, again, that's why I prefaced it with the dynamic piece, because I'm sure this happens regularly where those coaches are in meeting rooms, they're making an impact. You're just not hearing about it all the time in the media. So that's the only thing I'd throw out there. But I'm just like, I don't know. It's a weird vibe when you constantly I don't know if you feel the need, but if you need to go find guys to kind of mentor your defensive coordinator, like, is he the right guy? I think is just kind of the vibe I'm getting from that. That's all.
And Jeff, as you know, John he stuck his neck out there on this hire. He was 32 years old at the time. There's got to be a level of pride there as well, or almost protectiveness, to make sure that Zach, a lifelong Raven in many ways, is set up for his future, and it doesn't end with, a rotten egg so soon into his career. Because I don't think anybody doesn't believe in the guy in the sense that he has all the potential in the world. I mean, the guy is an unbelievable story of resilience and strength and talent and all. And clearly he was plucked for a reason. Now, they also lost a ton, as we've already discussed at length, after the 2023 season. Denard goes to Tennessee. We all know what happened. Anthony ends up in Miami and Mike ends up in Seattle. And so it's almost like by process of elimination, right? So you do wonder how much pride is involved in maybe some of the stubbornness here or the protection.
Yeah, absolutely. There's few people in the organization, in that building, more beloved than Zach Orr. This is not an easy decision. I get the fan frustration. I understand this happened last year. They eventually fixed it with some help. And here we go again. I was shocked that John Harbaugh says he feels like this is more fixable than last year. It seemed like last year the problem was giving up big plays. This year it seems the problem is everything. I don't. Every category they're just not good enough at. So I was surprised that John Harbaugh said that. But yeah, their feelings towards Zach Orr and his potential and his energy and how much he cares and how hard he works, they believe in him. They really believe in him. And I think the players believe in him too. But at some point, you need to see results. And they're not seeing results. They're seeing regression. I don't know that you could pick out a single defensive player and say he's met expectations. I just don't. Maybe Nate Wiggins. I might give you Nate Wiggins on that. And, some of the injured guys that aren't playing, I kind of take them off the board because we haven't seen them in a couple weeks. But, there's just been too much unit-wide regression for you not to have, significant questions about the coaching staff. But it's absolutely worst case scenario for them. They do not want to fire Zach Orr. But this is it's bad timing for Zach, because with this bye week coming and with all these injuries, usually when you see big changes like that, it's bye week is usually a week coaches do it because it gives the new guy a little extra time to come in and get settled.
Fellas, our first $100 super chat is what was just dropped by Eric, and it's birthday wishes. So, birthday boy, why don't you read this one off?
Happy birthday, Cole. It's not my birthday, chat. Yeah, a lot of people were wishing Eric a happy birthday, but it is my birthday. Mine is in